This is Make New Friends. I subtitled it at the last minute, A Hobbyist Guide to Conversational UI and the Internet of Things. I'm a contractor. I work remotely. I've worked remotely for close to 10 years now, or I've worked as a contractor for close to 10 years now. I work remotely. I work from home. This is not exactly an accurate description of what my day-to-day life is, but next week, Sean, this is going to look a lot like the stand-ups because I'm at the beach next week, which is a fantastic place to be, and I really enjoy it, but there's some downsides to it. My car is my office. Yes, I work from home, but my son's school is a half-an-hour drive, so I would be taking 2 hours out of my day to drive him to school and back. So instead of doing that, I drive him to school, I go find a local park or parking spot or someplace, and I work from my car, or I work from a park bench, mostly because I don't like coffee, and Starbucks gets a little on your nerves after about 3 hours. I have almost this exact model of car, but in a light blue. So yes, I'm polluting the world like crazy right now. I did get the fix on my TDI, but it's a wonderful car. I highly recommend it for people. But the downside is I've got a lot of alone time. Now, I would be a card-carrying member of the Introvert Society if I'd ever attended one of the Introvert Society meetings, but that defeats the point. My brother, who is a card-carrying member, was at the meeting holding the cards and wondered why nobody showed up. So when you have a lot of alone time and a lot of downtime, and when I started the idea for this talk, I was unemployed, looking for a new contract. What's your solution? Well, let's make some friends. I took this a little literally in this case, or I'm attempting to take this a little literally in this case. Problem, when I started this, I was unemployed. As of January, I became very employed. The contract is a legacy code base with a legacy, that's replacing an even more legacy code base. It involves lots of time of deep diving and code generation. So what started out as a talk where I was going to have this really great thing to show off to you guys now became a talk where I'm going to show off the ideas of this really great thing that I'm going to show you next year. But I had a solution to being really busy. How many people know Miyagawa? Miyagawa does this thing called conference-driven development, where he signs up for a talk for something he hasn't written yet. And then implements it pretty much on the plane ride to wherever he's going. Unfortunately, I drove, so that kind of fell down. So what were my goals for my new friend? One, I could do some sort of some sort of automation project, but that's kind of boring and doesn't really fit what I need. If you want to do this, the talk right before this, which is a terrible thing to do unless somebody's a time traveler, that was a great talk. Check out the YouTube video of it later. He did some great things with Alexa, Amazon, and Perl. But this is what I want to do. My car is a car. I'm not going to tell it to turn off the lights. That's just dangerous. You could do information retrieval, things like Google. Hey Google, what's a Whopper? And then, it'll play 15 seconds of a Whopper ad for you. Has anybody seen that video? Burger King got swift. They took out a 15-second ad, and it wasn't enough time to demonstrate what a Whopper is. So they just ended the ad with, hey Google, what's a Whopper? And then Google Home started talking to the person watching the video. But this is boring. I run Perl. How many people are on irc.perl.org? So you know the bot Perl, P-U-R-L? I run that bot now. So I already do a lot of information retrieval. It's not good information, trust me, she is not good information. But that's a boring project. That's a problem I've already solved. We could do task management. This is much more interesting, or much more useful, but it's still kind of boring. How many people use Task Warrior or a task managing program? I've started using Task Warrior. It's amazing. It does what I want. And yes, eventually I will probably tie it into all of this stuff. Sorry, my brother left his phone last night and it started telling me that my talk is going on right now. So this is useful, but it's boring, and I will eventually get into doing some sort of task management, like, hey, what's next on my to-do list? What's the next thing I'm supposed to be working on this week? Do I have a meeting in like 10 minutes? More useful and really interesting to me would be a rubber duck. How many people know what rubber duck problems are, a teddy bear problem is? Okay, so some of you. Teddy bearing is when, or rubber ducking is when you go and talk to somebody because you're having a problem and they don't say a single thing, but just the process of trying to explain it to them gives you enlightenment into the answer. I'm really running into the, wait a second, never mind, I got it. And you walk off, But this is a hard problem. This falls into like AI hard kind of Turing tests type stuff. Because ultimately, it has to give you feedback in a creative and interesting way, which I love. That's the stuff that I really want to get into with conversational UI, but it's hard. But simpler is the formal process of Scrum. How many people saw my brother's automating Scrum talk? If you don't, you should take a chance to take a look at it. It goes over the process of Scrum in a slightly snarky way. Let's go with slightly snarky because that's fair. And he's a Scrum Master at cPanel, and he believes that the only person you can't really automate out of the Scrum process is the Scrum Master. I think that you can do that too. I don't think his job is actually necessary. Most of the formal process you can automate away. You can do daily stand-ups, you can do some form of retros and stuff like that as an automated process where you have a bot that sits there and says, okay, what did you do yesterday? And you tell it, and it records that. What are you going to do today? And you tell it, and you record it. Do you have any problems blocking you? You tell it, and it records that, and post it somewhere where you can usably use it later. That's actually useful for me. That's very useful for me as a solo developer sitting in a park bench somewhere without a Scrum team. Thankfully, right now, I have a team of people that are wonderful, and I can do this, and we have daily stand-ups in some of this process. But when I was on my own and for my personal projects, I don't have that. This would be useful. So let's get into some show and tell, because this is the important part. This is the part that I really had fun and started nerding out on, and is why my talk is possibly more late, possibly more than the work part, is because I got so involved in what's the best toys for all of this. Hardware. I wanted something portable, obviously. I'm working from my car. It needs to be working offline. Not just because I'm working from my car and you can get a data plan for reasonable amounts of money. Well, not reasonable amounts of money, but you can get a data plan. But security-wise, do you really want something that Google's listening to you all the time, wherever you are when you're driving? No, I'm okay with that. So I want something portable, something that'll work offline, something that'll work in a park, something that'll work when I don't necessarily have cell phone reception. I want something that's easy to program. I'm not a hardware guy. I started out writing web software. I try and write web software to this day. I don't want to deal with the hardware if I can avoid it. I get confused at letters like FPGA and Arduino and Mega 32, and it's neat. I'm starting to learn more of it. I'm about to get a keyboard that's shaped like a butterfly that apparently has an Arduino in it, I hope. But I'm not there yet. So I need something that's easy to program, something that's straightforward. And I want something cheap. Because if I'm in the park and it starts raining, I don't want my wife to yell at me, you did what to your device? We spent how much money and it's now wet and it won't work anymore? So it needs to be cheap and replaceable. We stay within some reasonable places there. So the first thing, Raspberry Pi. I've seen this mentioned 3-4 times this week in various talks. These things are incredible. Board about this big. I have 128 meg hard disk on here. It boots off the USB drive. It's a fantastic little device. My desktop computer for work at home went on the fritz for about 3 weeks. I was able to replace it with this because I had it sitting on the desk anyway, and it just worked. I absolutely love my Raspberry Pi. Second, I need some way of doing audio. I want to talk to this device. I need it to do audio. which is perfect. I can do Bluetooth hands-free. Possibly not the way this guy does it. I actually have headphones. My car has a Bluetooth hands-free setup in it. This is perfect for my life. Well, except it's not. The Broadcom chipset that the Raspberry Pi uses has some issues. One, the driver for it is a binary blob because Broadcom hasn't open sourced it. And two, it doesn't work exactly right all the time. And by exactly right all the time, I mean roughly any of the use cases I had for it. Up to and including getting on the Wi-Fi and a Bluetooth keyboard and a Bluetooth mouse at the same time confused it and caused all three of them to crash, which is not the most useful. And the way I discovered it caused them to crash is you type the K key and it would type K for 3 hours. So you can get around that. If you notice, I have another dongle in here that's a Bluetooth dongle as well to offset, so I'm not using the same chipset for both Wi-Fi and Bluetooth. It has some issues. So let's step back and see, okay, well, what can we do? Maybe we can make this more like Alexa where it has a big device. One of the solutions, this is a hardware board. It's a hat in the Raspberry Pi community. It plugs into the GPI port. It's called the Matrix Creator. They have a new one called the Matrix Voice. It's a slick piece of hardware from what I've seen from the spec sheets. And I say from what I've seen from the spec sheets because the problem there was it got lost in the mail. It was supposed to arrive last week. And thankfully, it managed to arrive this morning. I'm staying someplace where I didn't know the address, so I had it delivered to Rick, and Rick dropped this off to me this morning. So I've had this for all of 4 hours now, so I've had no time to integrate this. But it has an 8 mic array on the, or 7 mic array on the back, it has FPGA board, it has detection settings, it has LED lights on the front. It's really slick hardware that's designed to do this kind of stuff. It doesn't exactly fall into the cheap category. The Matrix Voice that they're coming out with is about $50. This is about $100. So it's not break the bank bad, but it's not, I want to get this wet in the rain bad. But it's designed specifically for this purpose. Okay, that's not bad. A little cheaper, and my current solution until this morning was this. This is the PS3i camera, the camera that Sony sold for the PlayStation 3 to do online games. This is actually a really neat piece of kit. This is got a 4 mic array. It's got a camera that does, I forget, at least 10 frames per second. So, you know, blazing fast, high quality frame rate there. Mostly I was interested in the microphone, so, but it's highly directional. You have to point it towards where you're sitting for it to work really well. But unlike the $100 board, this was $7 off Amazon, and was available next day delivery. So it was slick. You plug it in and it just works. For some version of just works, which we'll get to in a little bit. My display, well, technically I don't need a display, and I'm trying to design this so that it doesn't have to use a display. But I do have a nifty little screen in my car. That has a connector port that is a bespoke Amazon connector, or a bespoke Volkswagen connector port, because I bought a 2015 model, and the 2016 models is when they released it with USB. 2016 is also when they released it without a cheat for the emissions, so I got screwed twice. But you can buy an RCA adapter to the bespoke, and then you can plug the RCA adapter into an HDMI adapter and plug the HDMI adapter into the Raspberry Pi, and I actually have a picture on Twitter of me booting my Raspberry Pi onto the screen in my car, which is uber nerdy. And my wife just sort of went, "Is that why you were sitting in the car for an extra hour?" "Yes, honey." Software. The joke at the bottom is I have a friend who will probably watch this video later, who's one of the few people I know who uses Nano professionally to edit core Perl. He's a masochist, I think. So software-wise, what are the tools that I'm putting together to make this happen. There are so many choices for doing software. There's a bunch of different projects for doing Alexa integration, Google Home integration. Most of the tutorials you'll find if you start Googling around for how to do voice automation on a Raspberry Pi have you go to the Google Voice server because that's what they do text recognition with because it's really good. We'll get to that in a second. The choices that I used are the ones that I'm using for my constraints. It has to work offline. It has to do what I want. I'm a software guy, so I have this big thing in my head about how I want the software to be arranged. Big thing, a little digression, big thing in my head. I have a talk that I gave in 2014 about cognitive theory that my business partner wrote. My business partner and I are really kind of nerdy about cognitive theory and how the brain works and modeling and metaphors and some of that stuff. If you get a chance, you should check out the talk. If you'd like, I can come and give the talk to whatever local Perlmonger group you have over Skype or otherwise. There's 4 parts to the model that I'm trying to build, but I'm really only implementing 2 right now because of budget shortfalls, mostly time budgeting. There's how many people have read Daniel Kahneman's Thinking Fast and Thinking Slow, or have at least heard of it? A couple people. Kahneman won a Nobel Prize, I think, for his work on thinking on cognitive systems, and basically he has this theory that there's 2 systems. There's a fast system that you think about impulsively, where you just react to things. It's very fast. It's kind of stupid. It gets things wrong about 20% of the time. And then you have these are your automatic systems. In my case, this is the speech recognition, the text-to-speech, natural language understanding systems, the things that happen really automatically but don't take a lot of deep diving and processing power to work through. My speech recognition system, right now I'm using Snowboy, which is a project on GitHub that does keyword detection. It runs a tight C loop. Andrew Rodland Hobbs wrote me a Perl wrapper for it. You can program it to do stop word, which is the Alexa, blah, blah, blah. The Alexa part is a stop word. The Alexa device has a little C loop that sits there listening for you to say Alexa, and then it triggers the rest of everything it's supposed to do. Snowboy will let you program in any stop word you want. You just give it 3 sound files of you saying something, and it matches your audio stream to that, and then triggers an event from that. What it'll trigger in my case is Pocket Sphinx. Pocket Sphinx is not the best text recognition system on the planet, but it's the best that runs on a Raspberry Pi easily that I found in the last 6 months. Text-to-speech. Text-to-speech was a pain in the butt to figure out. The free systems all sound like the old version of Stephen Hawking, not the new version of Stephen Hawking. They're all very broken up, very automated, and don't sound very clean, and they're difficult to listen to for extended periods of times. The new systems, any of the modern systems that are ready for pay, are brilliant. They sound really good. There's some systems out there that sound incredible and do prosody and sound, they can fake Obama and Trump's voices in really intelligent ways and sound like actual humans speaking. But you can't actually buy any of those systems. I tried buying several different systems, figuring out different ways to do it. They all want to sell to large corporate clients, except Capestrel. Capestrel was willing to sell me a voice engine for the Raspberry Pi for about $15. I forget exactly how much I paid, but it was about that much. And they were wonderful. And they have a special history for Perl because Kevin Lenzo started this conference, well, what this conference used to be called, and he started them as well. So they were fantastic, and they have really good voice-to-speech. Perl, I use Perl to glue everything together because I'm a Perl programmer first. System 2 is a slow and deliberate system. This does the long thinking. I'm using a conversation engine called Superscript.js. How many people have heard of AIML or so there's these systems out there that do chatterbots. They're written to generate conversations, and They do, basically you give them a text and it comes up with a response. It's a very long, complicated way of doing that. ChatterScript or Superscript is based on something in Perl called RiveScript, which is on CPAN. Superscript is written in JavaScript and is a little bit more powerful than RiveScript and has a few more plugins for some of the stuff I'm using for sentiment detection and some of that stuff. So what now? The abyss of, I don't actually have a functioning system yet. My goal is to get all of these pieces that I now have, since they got delivered this morning, glued together in a functional way, but I'm not there quite yet. I'm really short on time, but I'm perfectly happy to answer any questions I have about all of this. I'll put the slides and my notes and the links to the repository that all of this is in online, but I'm happy to answer questions now or at any point this conference. So thank you. Dave. It's the difference between the Daleks and Siri. Capstrel is almost Siri quality as far as text-to-speech. It really is quite nice. And that was the reason I was trying to find something other than Festival, because I didn't want to exterminate myself while I was trying to work. Anybody else? I'll also have this stuff here or around to show off if people want to see it. Okay, thank you.